Hello, it's Ed here with Whole Latte Love. We have a Gaggia Babila here sitting in front of me, and we're going to go over on how to clean, calibrate, or replace your grinder on this machine in case you're having problems with the machine grinding. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is we're going to have a couple screws to remove here, and then we got to turn the machine the back towards us and remove the back panel, and then we can work in getting the top of this machine off. Now, before you do anything, make sure you empty out any beans that you have in your bean hopper, because once you pull the top off, your beans are going to fall all over inside the machine. Not too far, but it's just going to be a little bit more of a pain. So make sure you clean out your hopper with a vacuum or dump it out or whatever. Make sure you don't have any water in the machine anywhere when you do that, but you can dump the beans out if you're careful. We're going to remove all of our accessories up here, the lid, the water tank. Then you have this yellow flap that tells you your tank is missing. And we need to tape that down because there's a spring inside of here, so when we pop the top off, that spring could come off and get lost, and we're going to add a piece of tape to that flap and keep it down against the wall inside of there. That way you ain't got to worry about it at all. So what you're going to need is you're going to need a T10 screwdriver of some sort. Mine is a magnetic tip, which is really nice. So if you can get a magnetic tip T10 screwdriver, I would get it. It will make your life a lot easier anytime you do any kind of work on these machines. So we're going to remove this screw here in the front underneath the water tank door. And take that. And then there's one underneath this door at the front also. So we're going to get that one out.
Don't lose your screws.
Don't lose them. All the other screws that we're going to take out are going to be black.
Okay.
So these two will go back on the top of the machine.
Okay.
So just keep that in mind. Now we got those out. We're going to turn the machine around because we have to remove this back panel because it's kind of over the top of the machine. So we have to get it out of the way. There's two screws down here on the bottom of the back. Those are also T10. All the screws are going to be the T10. And we're just going to get those out. Looks like I got to remagnetize my tip. It just doesn't want to hold them. Yeah, usually it comes right out with it. So we got there it goes. Those two screws we took out. Now all you got to do is kind of like get your fingers on the back corners here. Just kind of grab it however you can and then push up.
So you're pulling out, pushing up a little?
Yep, pull up, push out, or push up and pull out at the same time.
Okay.
You literally just got these like arms that are in slots. So it drops down into those and then you reattach your screws. So lift up and it'll come right off. So we're going to set that aside. Now we have to remove this ring that's around here. The first thing you want to do is pull this cover off. It just has clips that hold it in. Just kind of yank it off there. It ain't going to hurt anything. Make sure your machine is unplugged, of course. Now you got a power board right here. You don't want to have any power to it while you're working on the machine. Trust me, it doesn't feel good. So we got one screw here. We got another one right here at the top right corner. And one right here, just above this opening for the board. And we got one down here below the board. And then after this, we got one more. Don't lose your screws. The last one is right here. I don't know if you can see it. It's way back in this corner, which I'm having a hard time getting onto. There we go. So we're going to take that one out. And then set those all, they're all T10 screws also, the same size, same color. And now we can take this whole frame and pull it right off.
Okay.
We can set that offside. Try not to, wiggle that around too much because you can break the corners and everything, and you don't want to do that. Okay. All right, so now we got that off. We got the two front screws. Now we can work on removing the top of this machine. And you're going to want to open the door because that gets in the way. And then over here, I'll see if, actually there is no tab on that one there. So
okay.
I was thinking of a different machine.
Okay.
So we gotta pop this side up. And when you do, you kind of gotta like tweak this edge right here in and then pull up at the same time, like that. You can see this plastic tab sitting right here.
Yep.
Now that that's out, there's a little plastic tab right here, right in front of my finger.
Yep.
We're gonna pull up
Okay.
and then work that up.
Okay.
All right, so now that we got that loose, we can grab the other door. You can't lift them both at the same time on this machine.
Okay.
This is where it gets a little tricky. We gotta wiggle it around a little bit, get things a little loosened up. And there's 3 clips, just like that one over here in the middle, along this side of the machine. Now you're gonna wanna be really careful when you do this. I use a flat blade screwdriver, but you can slip and like possibly scratch your panel. Just be really, really careful if you plan on doing this. I usually wedge it up in here with something else. Get up in here so I can get a little leverage and start separating this from the panel.
Sure.
See that? So then you kind of just slide down through until you get to a spot where it's a little stiff and you just tweak it a little bit. Not a whole lot because you don't want to mark up your housing. And you can kind of work it up to another spot and pop that.
And you're not breaking stuff there.
You're not going to break anything.
Okay.
They're just little plastic clips that lock in.
Okay.
And they're not really, I've never broken one. So
Okay.
once you get those clips broken free like that, now you can wiggle this and get it to come out. Now you have this one cable that's attached to the top of the machine here, and we just got to disconnect it with like that little spring in the middle of it. You got to push into it and then pull down and get it off of this little metal bracket right there.
Okay.
So you got that little tab to push in and pull the cord down.
Okay.
Once you get that, now you can take your top and set it off to the side. So now you can close the door if you want, it doesn't really matter. But now we're at the grinder, basically. And over the grinder is this rubber cover thing. It's just like a cover, safety, insulator, sound, whatever. And we gotta get that out of the way so we can get to our grinder. And there's 2 screws that are attached to it to hold it in place a little bit. So we're gonna remove these 2 screws, one right here. I'm not sure why, but they use these stainless steel screws in here instead of the black ones.
Is there another one over to those wires? Or am I seeing things?
What's that?
Is there another one under there?
Oh, there is another one. Look at that. They added a 3rd one. There's usually only 2.
Okay.
They actually have 4 spots for screws, but they only usually put 2 in. And I don't know what the reasoning for that is, but for some reason this one's got 3.
Okay.
So check all 4 spots that a screw may be in.
Yeah.
And make sure you remove them. But usually it's only these 2 here.
They make little changes year to year sometimes.
They do.
Right?
They change things on me, and I don't find out about it until I get into a machine.
Okay.
So now that we have the screws out of the rubber cover here, we can lift it up and kind of just work it off the little things that it's sitting on.
Okay.
We're going to set that to the side. Now we're at the grinder. So on the grinder, you're going to want to push this little nub in right here.
Yep.
And we're going to back the burr out to clean out the grinder and the chute and everything. And then we can calibrate it after the fact.
Okay.
So we're going to push down and we're going to grab this gear and we're going to turn it so the line goes this way.
Okay.
And you got to just kind of work together with your hands and turn your thumb while you're pushing that in, and it'll help you make it spin this a little bit easier because it's literally a gear on a gear in here.
Sure.
So we're going to turn it until the 3 tabs on this upper plate are lined up with the 3 openings in here. Once it's at that spot, now you can lift this whole upper burr plate off and out.
Okay.
You see you got the 3 tabs.
Yep.
They go into those 3 different openings. So that's the only way you can remove it and put it back in. So now you can clean this up if there's any buildup on here. Like sometimes if you've got really oily beans, which we don't recommend, it will create like a nice layer of stuff on here, and you want to get that cleaned up. Now you can clean out your grinder. And I'm gonna
Got the vacuum?
got the vacuum. I'm gonna clean it out a little bit so it's easier to put that upper plate back in. right, so for video purpose, I just kind of casually cleaned it out, but you'll want to, you know, get this stuff a little bit more around here and just kind of use some kind of pick or a tool with a fine point on it. And at the same time, you can clean out the chute from here to here. Sometimes this is where your jam up happens sometimes, and then the grinder can't push the grounds out anymore. So now it can't pull any more beans in to grind because it has nowhere to put the grounds. So sometimes this gets jammed up.
There's a little passageway through
Yeah,
there.
there's a passageway right through here where my finger is to this side here. And that's where it forces the grounds to come out and drop down this thing.
What could you use to clean that with? Like a
I mean, if you're into the grinder like this far, you know, I mean, usually I use a vacuum over it and just kind of like suck it out of there. Sometimes I'll go in from the door and suck from underneath in the chute here.
Okay.
And then like move the brew group out of the way and then put it right up against the chute. Now,
could you clean that chute out too? It looks like there's some, you know,
yeah,
accumulation in there.
You can take a cloth and kind of like pull it down through there.
Okay.
And kind of clean it out a little bit. It's not really going to hurt anything if you don't.
Okay.
You really just want to mainly make sure that this channel here and everything in your grinder is cleaned out if it's gunked up enough.
Okay.
So now that we got it technically cleaned out, hopefully you got a little bit better than we did. We got to put this upper plate back in, and now this upper plate has 3 tabs. One of them is slightly bigger than the other 2. That of course goes into the slightly bigger slot down here. So we're going to put it in here, and we're going to line up all 3 of these tabs to go with these 3 openings. Watch out for wires. And once you get it, you can push it down in there so those 3 tabs slide down into those openings.
Yep.
You want to make sure those are down because now we need to turn the plate back in underneath those openings to get this to seat in properly now.
Okay.
So we're going to push that.
So you're pushing down on that.
And now we're going to go opposite of the way that we just took it out.
Okay.
You're going to turn it this way, and we're going to turn that thing this way. And you're going to want to keep going until this white line that's usually on your plate is lined up with this, like, the start of this adjustment thing.
Okay. And that's like the finest grind setting?
Yep, that is now your finest setting, which is where it's supposed to be. I mean, you can keep going, and you're not going to go much further. It's going to stop right in that area. Your burrs are touching there. You don't want it there.
Don't want there. Okay.
So even if you get it to that stopping point, you're just going to back it up till you get to the correct spot.
Okay.
And go just a hair more. There we go.
Okay.
So that's where you want it to be at your finest setting. Now your grinder is cleaned and calibrated.
Okay.
Now before we start putting the rubber thing back on, I'm going to also demonstrate on how to replace the grinder in case you need to replace it for, like, if the motor died on it for some reason. Whatever the reason may be, we're just going to go ahead and replace the grinder now.
Okay.
Or show you how to do it. And this is the grinder when you get it. It's all one assembly. Now this grinder is similar but slightly different. This is actually for an academia. So the adjustment knob is different and it's on a different slot. But this is just an example of the grinder assembly.
That's what it would look like.
Yeah. And it comes with these wires. And you don't need the wires because the wires are already in here. It just makes more work to replace them. You don't need to because the wires, I've never had any of the wires go bad on any of the grinder motors I've ever worked on.
So the new one would come with the wires. You're just going to take those off.
We're just going to take them off, and you can do whatever you want with them. Braid them, make artwork. So we unplug those by doing that little press in on the little clip here at the back.
Yep.
And pulling off.
Okay.
So get those removed. And then this thing here has got a little plastic clip on it. And that's just a kind of a holder for this wire into the sensor.
Okay.
I think it's more the manufacturing purpose for that clip because the grinder doesn't move anywhere after it's in the machine.
Okay.
So we're going to put a flat blade behind that clip right here, and we're just going to turn.
Just turn. You just turn the.
I just turn the screwdriver a bit, and it pops that clip right out.
Okay.
Okay. So now we can pull the connector right off of there.
Okay.
And now we can do whatever you want to do with that wire.
Okay.
So now, once you got your new grinder without the wires on it, you can pull your old grinder out, and you kind of just work it out of there. And now you got to disconnect your wires to the grinder. So you got this white and black wire to the motor. Now the black wire, when you reattach your wires, you need to make sure that wire is on the bottom.
On the bottom.
Black starts with B, bottom starts with B. That's just the way I always remembered it when I first started working on these.
B, black bottom.
Yep.
Okay.
So the black wire goes on the bottom. Same thing here. You got to push the little spring thing in and pull the wire back. Same on that one.
So you put those on backwards, it's going to run backwards, right?
Yeah,
You're
your
not gonna
grinder
grind
will
much coffee.
rotate the wrong way.
Okay.
And you won't pull any beans in. You'll be like, it's still not working.
Okay.
Make sure your wires are hooked up. And then you're also going to, same thing on the other grinder, you're going to take your flat blade and kind of turn
to get that.
and pop that free. And then unplug it.
Okay.
And then you're going to want to take this thing off.
Little white, okay.
Because it doesn't come with the whole grinder assembly. And you're going to
Okay.
want to put it on
your new grinder.
on your new grinder.
Okay.
And that's basically the only thing you need to worry about on that.
Okay. Then we got
Make
that
sure your
spring
spring,
down there, right?
sometimes this spring will, it just sits there, kind of keeps this thing from bouncing around too much.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it'll move on you when you pull the grinder out.
Okay.
Just make sure it's just sitting in that opening down there.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
And then on this rubber part here on the motor, which comes with the assembly also, you got these two guides right here. They go over these two pegs that are down in the back here.
Those two guys right there.
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
So when you reattach your wires and you start placing that in, you're just going to want to kind of guide those into the right spot.
Okay.
So we're going to reattach our wires first. You got 3 tiny holes
Yep.
on the top side here. They go into the 3 little pins that are on the top side of this.
Yep.
I don't know if you can see that or not, but
Yeah.
so you have to put it in one way. So if you try to put it in upside down, you're going to push into the pins and like,
So make sure you get it the right way.
So just visually look at the holes and the pins and make sure you're going in the correct way. And once you get it in there, it will slide in nice and easily like that. And then you're just going to push it in.
Okay.
And then you're going to take this clip. These 2 prongs have to go underneath it.
Underneath.
And once you get it to a certain spot, it will kind of sit where it needs to. Like that. And then you're just going to push it in.
Little snap in. Okay.
Yep. Now, if you happen to lose that or break it, it's not going to hurt anything if you don't have it on there. And then you take your wires, the black one on the bottom of the motor, and push that in. White wire on the top, and now you're connected again. Now you're going to fish your grinder in here, make sure your thing is still attached there, and you're just going to place it and move this rubber thing around if you need to get it to go over those pins. Watch your wires, make sure they don't get bound up anywhere, and just kind of push it down in there.
Now those grinders usually come set to the finest grind setting
Yes.
like that, I noticed.
When the new grinder assembly comes, like this one,
Yeah.
it's already set to the finest setting.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I mean, you should always probably take a look and make sure it
Make
is
sure.
there,
Okay.
but I've never seen one where it hasn't
Okay.
been.
Okay. Doesn't hurt to have a
Yeah,
look though.
I always double check everything when I'm
Sure.
working on any of these things. All right, so this thing is set to go.
Okay.
You've either cleaned or calibrated or replaced it, and now we can put it back together. You can put this rubber thing back over.
Make sure your wires are out of the way there.
Yeah, you got these ones here. They kind of just move out of the way. These ones are from the grinder mode. There's a channel right here for them to sit in. And you're just gonna get everything situated where these rubber things go over the sleeves, and you can kind of see that it's all set there.
And again, we got 4 holes, but it's not always.
Yeah, not all of them are always used. So we're gonna put at least these 2 in here. And since they had a 3rd one here, I'll put it there too.
Okay.
So you're just gonna go until it kind of stops because they kind of just hold the rubber in place.
Okay. No, you're not
You don't
gonna
wanna over
crank
crank
down
it.
on these. Okay.
And this wire here, just make sure it's not in the screw hole
Okay.
because you'll screw into the wire
And that might not be good.
and it won't be good. It'll break the wire and then your grinder won't work at all. And it'll give you like an EO1 or, yeah, an EO1 I think it is, or 2 grinder blocked. And get this last one in. And we're good.
Okay.
So now you've got your grinder all set and everything. Now we just got to put the top back on, which
Okay.
isn't really that hard actually. It's easier to
Okay.
put it on than
Yeah,
it is to take it off.
I like it when it's easier.
Yeah. So we just got, the first thing I need to do is make sure that this wire is connected back to this little brass connector here.
That's just a ground wire, right?
Yep.
And
And it just pushes on.
Okay.
All right, so before we actually set this top in and start pushing it into place, you got your adjustment knob.
Okay.
We need to make sure that's in the correct spot before we put it on here.
Because we're at our finest setting.
Because we're at our finest setting. So if you had it on the coarsest setting, you put it in there, and all of a sudden you're trying to adjust it to the, you're going to hit the burrs together, and you're going to have a problem.
Not going to be good. Okay.
So you can either turn the dial all the way to the arrow is pointing down,
Okay.
which is your finest setting,
Or you got a little cheat sheet, right?
or you got a cheat sheet where you can put your lid on there, and you can see where the arrow is pointing.
So we
So
want
if it's over here, you don't want it there.
You want arrow at 1, right? Or-
Over here,
Okay.
till it basically stops.
Okay.
So you can take your lid off, and now you know you're at the finest setting. The grinder's at the finest setting. So we're going to go ahead and place this top back in your, open your door if you closed it.
Okay. Door open over there. Okay.
And we're going to set this side in first because you can see the knob is moving around on me. I just hold it like that, and I kind of wiggle it in place and get the top to start falling in.
Okay.
You can see that the knob is no longer turning.
Okay.
Okay. And then you push down on this side, and all those
Just
clips pop in.
snaps in. Okay.
We're going to set that lid down. We're going to come over to this side and make sure this thing is going into the channel that's right there. Make sure this clip is going over that part there
Over on the outside of the, okay.
and push down.
Oh, that was so much easier.
Yeah. So now the top is back on. We can just take these 2 screws for the top, the stainless steel ones, and just screw those in.
As usual, you're really not cranking down on these very hard.
No, they're not hard to remove or put in. They move really easily. And then once you hit that stopping point, you'll know it, and that's where you just don't try anymore.
Okay.
Like right there, I just hit stop. Don't try anymore.
Okay.
Now we can close the door. Now we just got to put the back on here. So we need this frame. And it's going to just kind of sit. You kind of just put it in place right here at the top. You can see the bottom. This one usually isn't a problem on this side. It's this one here. You can see it sticking out a little bit. It's supposed to be behind that like it just did.
Behind that.
This plastic thing here. Sometimes it'll just sit in front of it.
Okay.
So you just make sure it goes behind there.
Okay.
Once you get it in place, you can just let it sit there. And I always start with 1 screw on this side. It doesn't matter where you go, but that's just my preference. And once you get that screw in, you can come over to the other side and get that screw to go in. Now your frame is in place. You ain't got to worry about it falling out. You can put the other 3 screws in. One right here. And here.
Just while you're screwing, I mean, I'm looking at the 2 boilers here, right?
Yeah, we have the steam hot water boiler, and we have the brew boiler over here. This machine, along with a couple other ones, are the only ones that in the Gaggia line that have a 2 boiler system on a super automatic machine. Most of them just have a 1 boiler system with different thermostats to control the temperature.
Okay.
So we got our screws back in. We got to take this cover for the board, and you can see this big rectangular heat dispersion thing. Big rectangular hole.
Okay.
Goes in just like that. You kind of just line it up with this frame of the opening and just push it in. Sometimes this one wants to pop out because there's wires right here. But if you work with it a little bit, it'll snap in.
Okay.
Then the last thing is to take your back panel, and you're going to kind of set it just above. You'll feel it kind of sit in flush with the
Just a
machine.
little-
So you got like a 1/4 of an inch or so above the machine.
Yep.
If you go too far, you won't be able to seat it in, or
Okay.
you know. So it's just above it, and you'll feel it just kind of drop right in there.
Okay.
Once you get it there, you push it down.
Push it down. Okay.
So now it's on. We just got to put our 2 screws. If I can get them in my fingers. And put those in. Until they
What else
stop.
we got? We got that piece of tape still in there?
Yes.
Right? Okay.
So now you can open up this lid, kind of peel your tape away on one side, and pull it off.
Nice.
And now your spring clip thingy is working. And you have now successfully taken the top off, cleaned, calibrated, or replaced your grinder, and hopefully that will resolve whatever was going on, and you'll have a good running machine.
All right, Ted, thanks so much for taking us through that.
You're welcome.